Prescott Preservation Commission. Members present at this meeting are Marianne Suttles, James McCarver, Michael Mirko, and Mike Young.
King.
I apologize, Mike King. I was reading ahead here. And I am Robert Burford, the chair. Staff members present are Kat Moody, Historic Preservation Specialist, Bryn Stotler, and George Worley is not here, I don't see. Kaylee Nunez, Recording Secretary, and Councilman Good from the City Council. Thank you all for showing up this icy day, and Happy New Year, new decade. This is an open public hearing and is being videotaped and tape recorded by the city. The proceedings are being televised by representatives of the public media, local cable, and or radio stations, and may also be rebroadcast. The number of commission members present is 5, and it will require 4 votes for a majority to act on any item. All parties wishing to be heard on an issue are required to raise their hands and be recognized by the chair prior to speaking. Speakers will be expected to state their name and address for the record so that we may know who is speaking and be able to contact them later at a later date as necessary. Please turn off your cell phones, electronic devices, game machines, whatever you've got out there. If you haven't already done so, and please sign the attendance roster before leaving the meeting. On to our agenda today. Our first item, as usual, is the dealing with the minutes from the December 13th, 2019 meeting. Has everyone had an opportunity to review those, and are there any comments, changes, corrections to those? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Make the motion to approve the December 13th, 2019 minutes of our meeting.
Motion made
Seconded by myself.
and seconded. All those in favor, raise your right hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say no. Passes. On to the next item on our agenda. Is this is item numbered HP 20-001, 249 South Mount Vernon Avenue. It is in the Historic Preservation District number 13, which is southeast Prescott. This request is for a remodel of an existing garage in the rear of the property, and with that garage, some fencing and pavers. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Moody for a discussion.
Good morning.
Yeah.
This is, as stated, a 249 South Mount Vernon property, right at where Carlton, there's a slight jog in Mount Vernon right here. So we've reviewed several projects in this area, so I'm sure you're all familiar with it. And the request today is it primarily deals with the old Model T garage in the rear, which is an existing structure in this aerial, and it's a little dark on your screen. The garage sits in the rear of the property. So what I'm going to do is put up the plan so you can see a little better what we're talking about here. So this is the existing structure. This is the main home here. This is the existing garage on the property line in the rear of the property. And the proposal here is to repair and enhance the framing associated with this garage structure, expand it, adding an entire whole new bay to the north of the existing structure. That bay will be taller than the existing garage, and I'll show you an elevation in just a moment. And then it will also extend 5 feet further towards the main house. So the intention here is to take the existing grandfathered small garage, expand it to the north, then add this additional taller second garage bay. And then just a reminder from that plan view, this bay of the garage does extend 5 feet towards the viewer in this elevation. The intention is to take the old barnwood style siding and to reuse that in the view, in the siding of the garage on the view that you would see from the street, so that that siding is maintained and reused on the new structure. And then the tin roof from the existing garage would be used for roofing these two small shed-style that are labeled shed-style roofs that are labeled as tin eyebrow roofs here that would protect the garage doors on the newly expanded garage. The siding would match the existing siding on the house where the barnwood siding was not being repurposed. And then in the gable end of this new taller garage bay, the siding pattern from the house would be duplicated in that gable end. And this is a shot, and it's a little hard to see here, but if you've driven by the property, you may have noticed there is a decorative vertical board and batten with some detailing patterns, which is going to be duplicated here to tie the garage structure in with the pattern of the siding of the house. The roof on the existing, the old garage will end up being a shed-style roof, so that will address drainage back down to the creek, and we do have the property owner. I'll have him address that as a component of what you're reviewing. In addition to the garage modification in the rear of the property, which you can see from the view from the street, is down this driveway back behind the house. Then the other elements of this request involve the fencing in the front. And so to go back to our plan view, there's fencing in the front that's being proposed to be replaced with a iron fence. This is an approximation of the style of that iron fencing. Currently, it's a wood fence there that's starting to deteriorate and does need to be replaced. So that decorative fencing would be in the front of the property. The intention is to have this fence run far enough across the driveway, far enough back so that it would allow a vehicle, a full-size vehicle, to pull in here outside the gate. You can see right now the way you don't quite have enough room before you hit the fence to have a vehicle in the driveway. So that line of fencing across the driveway would be recessed further back to allow a full parking spot outside the fence. Then that driveway would head back to the garage area. And then the other element to the fence is a 6-foot chain link fence to finish off the rear fencing in the back of the property. That is not visible from the street at all. And then the proposal is to install pavers on the driveway, going back to the remodeled garage. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you all for questions. And as I stated, we do have Rob Johnson here, who is the property owner, and I'll open it up for discussion.
Ed, I have a couple of 3 questions.
Okay.
I'm a little unclear. This tin eyebrow, is that essentially a shallow slope or a steep slope shed roof coming off of these two structures, or is that a mansard or?
No, it's just a shed-style roof, so it's like an awning-style roof that would cover, an entry door.
And then the roof on the existing garage, you made mention of that, but
And I'm going to have Rob get up. Yes. Yep.
Stand up there.
Name and address for the record, please.
Rob Johnson, I currently live at 141 South Mount Vernon Avenue, which is the block just down from this existing house. The roof line of the existing Model T garage, I don't know how you call it, but it actually just angles back and slopes back.
Shed
And
style.
It's shed style, and it's a
One
tin roof.
pitch.
Yeah, just one pitch. And the goal is to leave it like that, have the other one, the additional structure, would have gutters and then drain back to that, and then the water would flow off the property.
So just to be clear, so this is the existing structure in this image, and does it drain to the north right now? From your property line into the interior,
North would be that way. It actually drains to the back of the property.
to the east?
the
Okay.
east.
All right.
And
So look at it in plan view, this is, say, the existing garage, the water is going to the rear towards the
That's correct.
ravine? Yes.
And so the concept off the eyebrows on the front over each garage door would be to repurpose some of the tin that's currently on the building that's pretty rustic looking, and just make like 3-foot eyebrows that come off the front sides just over the garage door openings across the face.
what pitch?
That degree-wise,
Real shallow or real steep or?
not, kind of in between, enough to, probably an angled, about so, I think. Not super steep, but enough to, hold snow on it and allow it to melt off. And
And another question, if I may, and then, so you're foreseeing this second garage. I mean, it's obvious how getting in and out of that first garage, it appears there's possibly room to turn around from that and head out forward going onto Mount Vernon Street.
there would be. By adding that additional structure, there would be enough room, I think, to where you could actually make the turnaround. You'd have to jog a couple of times, obviously, to get out of there, I think, and back down the
The
drive.
intent is to come out forward.
Yes,
on
yes.
Mount Vernon.
Yep.
I think that's probably necessary on that busy street.
Well, I agree. And
Location it's at.
And that would be that's one of the reasons that I wanted to step the fence back off the property, because you're right at a 3-way stop.
Right.
And if you've seen the traffic come down that street, I'm not sure everybody's making that stop. And when I've been up at the house, I've witnessed that personally. But the idea is to be able to get 1 or 2 cars off of Mount Vernon to park by kicking that gate back further as well.
So are you
So-
thinking you'd be backing into that space or you come out forward? I'm concerned about traffic at that intersection. We've dealt with that before. And
Oh, yeah.
fence across the street, sight lines, et cetera.
Yeah.
Not that that's absolutely mandatory, but in fact, it may be. I don't know. I'd have to ask.
The convenient way to do it would be just pulling forward, but, you'd have to watch for traffic to be able to back into that, to be able to nose back out the other way, but.
Well, certainly either way, you're going to be dealing with traffic,
Right.
either pulling in or backing into that parking space.
I guess my first concern is that at the addition of this garage, I don't want to see that preclude turning around on property and heading out, because it is shielded by the main house somewhat.
Right.
And is this a single-car garage?
It's-
Frankly, it would help if we had a few more graphics here to see what we're
Sure.
dealing with.
So I'm a car guy, and I restore cars and as a hobby in my retirement. And the goal is I'm going to put a car stacker in that higher structure, and all it will have in it is 2 vehicles, some electric, outlets, lighting, and maybe a hose bib on each end of it.
I have a question, sir. I have been by the property, and I've been by 141, and it's a stellar home. This guy really.
No,
It's
thank you.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful home. Is this going to be a rental?
No, actually, actually, the purpose, my wife and I have walked our dogs by that house for 4 years, since we've lived in our current facility. And we've always looked at it, was always overgrown, and we're trying to, be honest with you, trying to get our daughter out of California.
Okay.
And our daughter's going to be living in that structure. So it's going to stay in the family. Yeah.
By the looks of your current home, it's not going to be anything but beautiful.
Thank you. That's the intent is to, so you don't know me from Adam, obviously, but I've restored 3 other older homes in California. And we moved here. It took us 3 years to find the one we're living in now. And I needed to find a place that was big enough for my hobby. And I've
It's
already.
a beautiful truck you have also.
Oh, thank you. I've got several in there. That's why I'm running out of room. That's why I need a place to put my truck or a couple of cars. But so the intent is to repurpose whatever I can off that Model T garage to make it look like it was built that way. And the fortunate thing about that lot is that driveway actually slopes downhill, so the elevation of that structure is not going to look from the street any taller than the house, which was one of my intents. And behind that structure, it starts terracing down. There's a walkway, and then it has multiple terraces that go all the way down to the creek. And I want to continue to, eventually the backyard will maybe have an outdoor fireplace and all of that kind of behind the house and off to the left of the garage. So my intent is to restore that thing as good as I can, because it's going to stay in the family, and it'll be there with my family long after I'm off the planet.
You
probably.
do a good job, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That rear portion is accessible. Is there seems to me like there's an alley on the north end of that.
Well, the alley comes off of
Goodwin.
Goodwin, and it only goes up. It comes up within about, I think, 3 or 4 houses of
I wasn't sure how far it
249.
So I think in this image here, you can see the alley exists, the right-of-way, this is the right-of-way here that makes the alley, but the actual drivability of the alley kind of terminates about here down, about 3 houses down.
Yeah, and it's not that alley section is dirt, and it's not maintained by the city, and I think there's just a turnaround at the end of it to get back out at this point, but.
Any other comments for the commission members?
Can you use the mic, please?
Are there any height restrictions that the city imposes on that additional garage?
Just the standard height restrictions for the zoning district, but this is not in excess of that.
Okay. Yeah.
Max building height for this zoning district looks like
And from
it's
a
35 feet.
And what does the city recommend as far as fencing in the front? Do they make any recommendations or restrictions?
4-foot max fence height.
But the iron fence that's
The
proposed?
historic district guidelines promote wood and iron
Mhm.
fencing, steel or iron.
The plans show proposed addition for a shower in the back?
That was an existing permit from I think when, I just used that as
Oh,
is
okay.
the map.
This was a
back
site plan we had on file from a previous building permit, and he took that and repurposed it.
Yeah,
Okay. So that's already in,
yeah,
the
that
shower's
was
there?
from 1987.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. So you're not really going to change the structure of the house any?
So the highlighted items here are the things that we're addressing today. The chain link in the back, the addition and remodel of the existing small garage, and then the fencing in the front.
Question again. You're in a historic district. You've got neighbors. I'm sure they're interested in what you're doing. Everybody's a buy-on with that. They appreciate it and glad you're doing it.
To my knowledge, yes. As a matter of fact, I have Ralph sitting here, agreed to come down with me in case there are any questions, because Ralph is the next door neighbor, so he's going to be the guy that's going to be impacted the most by what I'm doing.
And he's another meticulous character.
Well, and to just sort of back up, you've got to be part of this neighborhood. So when you begin to change things,
Oh, no, that's, and where I moved from, we were an integral part. Like I said, I restored 2 antique homes from where we moved from in California prior to moving here. And since living at 141, I've already redone a bunch of the siding on that house, repainted it in the classic colors. And I'm pretty anal about my homes and my cars to boot, so.
you might be a referral to the next house and the next house. They may want you doing that work.
Yeah, this is going to be my last purchase on the Mount Vernon, I think. But
Okay, thank you.
you're very welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question for George Worley, who is here. Possibly just refresh my memory on how grandfathering works. We're adding on to an existing structure, and you probably already looked at this. I just refresh my memory on how that works when you add on to an existing grandfather.
So grandfathering means it was already existing and it was legal under some prior code or development. It may not meet the current requirements. Adding on to something that was already there and not proposed to be removed, we look at the addition as requiring to meet the current requirements. So you have to meet the maximum height, the maximum setbacks, all of those things with the addition. The existing structure, if it remains, can stay where it is under whatever rules it was originally built under.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments?
No, Kat did a really good job of explaining what I'm trying to, and I want to thank you all because I came and met with them in addition, so to make sure I was on the right course. I didn't want to come in here and stumble and fall, and so I tried to do as much of my homework as possible before I came in here to pitch this. So,
Council members, do I have a motion to proceed here?
I will make the motion.
If you can use the mic.
I will make the motion to accept the garage addition to 249 South Mount Vernon, APN 110010081.
So you're saying accept the garage addition. So if you want to approve the entire item, I would,
Oh, and the fencing?
well, you can reference item HP and there, on the second page of the staff report, there is.
Okay, so item HP 20-001, the request for a remodel of the existing garage in the rear of the property and the fencing and also pavers up the driveway.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
I second it.
Second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. Carries. Good luck.
thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
And I'm telling you again, sir, your home now is I live on Mount Vernon myself.
Oh.
And it's stellar.
Thank you.
It really is.
Yeah, I've told my wife that when I get done with this one, I may wind up moving in there, and her and my daughter can stay on the other one. So, we'll just swap houses. But
Well, thanks
again
the
for your
good
time.
job.
I really appreciate it.
Next item is update of current affairs, current events and affairs. And Ms. Moody has
Yep.
some info for us.
Yep. So, as we discussed earlier, we've been working on follow-up documentation for previously approved items. And I actually did expect Rick Sprain to be here today. He worked very hard on these photographs. And he's been running around town for about a month now, capturing all of these. So I wanted to go through this documentation to show you what's happened with items you've approved in the past. So this item was a sign up on Union Street, right there at the corner of Union and Cortez, for the Parlor Art Gallery. And this was a perpendicular sign that had to extend out beyond the awning. And that's what that sign looks like. This item, HP 19005, was the replacement awnings at the corner for Bloomtree Realty due to their acceptance as a Better Homes and Gardens real estate firm. So these two corner awnings were refabricated, and you may recall there was a fair amount of discussion about the information center logo and the colors as well for that logo. And so this awning replacement took place, and the colors were toned down, and a gray and white color scheme was decided upon here. This was a administrative approval for just a refabricating of the Raskins Jewelers awnings. They were blue and white, and they replaced them with black and gold. The awning, actually, the font, the text, everything was exactly the same. It was just a color change for them. This was signage for Ian Russell Gallery, and so this was a replacement sign. He had a faux wood type sign before, and this is a lighted sign that was developed in very similar style to what he had previously. And this is the same building, but this is the facade renovation for this building. It was previously green stucco, and that stucco was removed, and some brick. The brick was painted along the two flanking sides, and that paint has been removed. And then the clear story windows there were, the transom windows across the top were exposed and then reglassed. And then the front of the building was repainted there in the display cases.
Can I ask a question on those windows?
Yep.
Is that a storage?
That is display space. So it's accessible from a second story, but to get into that area, there's low ceilings that are slightly less than 5 feet. So you have to kind of, duck down to get into that. So they've constructed a wall about 5 feet back from that glass pane line, and they're using that just for display space.
Because I think when Mr. Russell was here, he wanted to do a little bit more with that.
No, he just wanted it to be a display space.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is paint and lighting that was approved for the Bashford Burmester building combo, so facade changes, and those are in the works. So that they're not complete at this point, but this is the status of where things are at today. This was a sign for 1881 Spirits. It was previously Whiskey Row Pub, and this is the sign that went up in the sign ban. Yeah.
I've read the article on the renaming of that particular business,
Uh-huh.
and the basis was based on some kind of date in Prescott history, 1881.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe that they are interpreting that correctly. But I'm not the person to enforce that. They're using some misinformation in their labeling.
Okay.
Just so as the guy who does the downtown walking tours and notices things, I just thought I'd bring that to the gang's attention.
Yeah, and I think there's been a there's a fair number of dates where people consider Prescott as starting because it was, a village and incorporated in a town, so there's a series of dates that have been used through time, so. This was a remodel to it included doors into the holiday courtyard, but it's to the lower space that used to be Jenny Longhorn's. The last retail space in here was Ortega's. And so this space was converted from retail to event space for the Grand Highland Hotel. So this is the lower floor of the Grand Highland Hotel. This work included the creation of these ballroom spaces that you see here. And then in the lower right picture, you can see there's a glass demising wall, and that serves beyond that as the lobby for the hotel building. So, and then these two new doors were added to provide access onto the courtyard. And then these are a couple of the murals that were preserved as part of, what happened after the fire. So the Al Cigar mural is inside the main ballroom, and then this General Arthur mural is in the actual lobby waiting area there. This was interior changes associated with the Western Heritage Center. And so they did fairly minor improvements. They did paint the pressed tin ceiling. It used to be turquoise, and now it's a more neutral earth tone. And then there were interior display elements. Those are all interior to the to the main walls there in that space. Yes.
One more observation. I do the tours downtown, and they have a visual screen, like a large TV that continues to change the pictures. I don't know if anybody's seen those, but they're great historical photos of downtown Prescott that play all the time, that even when they're not in business. And so it's a walking billboard, so to speak, of our history, and a great asset, even if the door is closed. You
Okay.
still get to see some things.
Yeah, that's
The
great.
interior, of course, they've done a great job.
Yeah, they did. This was a sign that was approved in the Whiskey Row Alley for a back alley wine bar. And that's how that ended up. This was a mural, panel mural system that was placed at the north end of Whiskey Row Alley. And this recently had a grand opening ceremony associated with this. You may recall this is not painted directly on the brick in order to preserve the brick of the building, and it's actually on a aluminum composite panel system, and then the brick was actually part of the mural painting itself. This was signage for Marionette, which I can say, I know one of the questions that came up when this sign came through is, what do they sell? And I've actually been in there. I went in on Acre night to see what was in there. So it's a variety of gifts and women's clothing. So this is the sign on the front of the building in the sign band, and then there was an additional sign in the directory sign panel on the side of the building. This is a fence. We're moving out of the Courthouse Plaza district now and into, this is out in Hacienda, historic homes at Hacienda. This fence was under construction during our last follow-up photo review. So the photo on the right of the split rail is in the rear of the property. That actually we've documented before, but the photos on the left are of the fence in the, well, technically those are the rear of the property. This is a dual fronted lot. So the front of the home technically is on Old Hacienda Lane, but their primary entrance is here on Country Club Drive, and that's the full screen fence that you see on the left. This was over on South Mount Vernon. The left photo on top is the before image, and this work's still ongoing, but you may recall that the two support posts on either side of the entry were a scrolled wrought iron. Those have been replaced with a simple post detail. There was windows work on the window that's to the right of the front door, and then there's also window work that's taking place on the rear of the house as well. They also were redoing sprinkler system and some landscaping elements, which you can see there. They've got grass in and have improved the yard. This is just 2 doors down on Mount Vernon, just a little to the south. And this was the left, let's see, the left shot is a before shot. And then the picture, the right-hand picture and the lower picture are what's happening today. So this was a front porch addition. The porch, you can see the wooden porch posts where it looks like a kitchen components are stacked there. And then this also involved re-siding and then window replacement for this home. So a little bit before and in progress, but they're certainly making progress on this place and getting close. This was over on Larkin Street. This was a project we reviewed 2 or 3 times until we came to an agreement on what this addition would look like. You may recall that they came forward with a very large addition that would be 2 stories immediately behind the original house. The original house is just that small little right-hand section there in the bottom picture. And then the addition in that bottom picture is that window, that section to the left. And then from the rear, that's a before and after the 2 pictures up at the top. So the left picture is before, where you can see some plywood and the rear of the old house. And then on the right, that is the addition that you're looking at off the alley. This was a request for a patio cover for the this public gathering building here. And so the before pictures at the top left, and the you can see a couple of shots of this patio cover, one from where you can see the protective sides to allow use of this patio in inclement weather. And then another shot on the right there where you can see it from the side. And you may recall, for those of you who have been here a while, the corner stone columns and the fencing associated with that patio was also something that was approved by this commission previously. And I think this turned out really, really nicely. So this is an ongoing project. I got a call about this the other day. Somebody said, "How could you let these people remove the brick from this house?" And I explained to her, well, the brick's not original to the house. They're actually restoring it to the way it used to look. So they have been making good progress. The top left photo is a before of the brick with brick columns at the front of the property, and the other 2 photos here show in progress where the brick's been removed and they're working on repairing siding and getting windows fixed and working towards restoring the house to what it looked like in the historic photo they had found of the property. This was the front porch addition variance item that we reviewed for Mount Vernon. This is not a National Register listed home. It was an infill development from the 80s. So this is the status of this item. And this, after leaving Preservation Commission, went to Board of Adjustment. And I believe that item was approved through Board of Adjustment. So they're making forward progress on that. This was a front porch reconstruction. We reviewed 2 items. This is the first one for this property. So the top left is a before picture or an in progress when they were starting to work on the front porch and the reconstruction of the front porch area, including the door and window there. And then the other 2 photos below are, post-construction. So they installed a brick walkway and these brick columns, new railing, and new front porch elements. And the windows in the front were modified back to their previous configuration, so you can see these ultra long windows in the top photo were not original, so they returned the front windows on the left to a normal window height that was what it was previously before it had been modified. And then this same property also had an item that was reviewed for excavation, which I think was probably the first time we've ever approved an excavation underneath a house, to allow for a additional square footage on the lower level of this home. So you can see the picture on the left was actually as it sat the last time we did follow-up documentation, and then the picture on the right shows the completed plan. So they were able to get an additional bedroom, bathroom, and then laundry area downstairs in this home by excavating under the house. This is what we call affectionately the, not so affectionately, the stairway to heaven. This
Reflect that, too.
yeah, this item is still in progress. The homeowner will be here next month. She could not make this meeting. I have been working with the homeowners and the chief building official to get a plan that can be approved through building and that I think would be approved here at Preservation Commission. My understanding is that yesterday, the stair and landing, all the elements that are protruding up above the roof line were removed, which was at my request. If she couldn't make the January meeting, I said the stairs need to come down before February. So that's in progress. You'll see that next month, the revised plan for that roof maintenance element. This is the old Jack in the Box restaurant, future home of Bosa Donuts, and nothing's happened. So still waiting.
You said, excuse me, the future home of what?
Bosa Donuts.
Don't-
That's the company that was working, developing plans to redevelop this property. So they sell donuts, obviously.
There is a big fence all around it now, so.
Yeah,
They're making progress.
they've had plans going through review, so they're just slow, but they're making forward progress. Changes to this building that we approved were fairly minor. They were facade, painting changes. The mansard-style roofs were getting a raised seam metal roofing. The only substantial change they proposed was at the rear of the property for the drive-through window. They had to cut a corner of the building off in order to accommodate a better turning radius for drive-through vehicles. This is
That building is in the historic district, too.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's in the same district with all the other homes on Mount Vernon. There. Yeah. Even though it's not a National Register listed building, we still review it because it's part of the district. This is the railroad trestle bridge. So this item was a courtesy review because it's not in one of our local districts, but it was for the Hilton Garden Inn, and specifically we were concerned with their treatment of the National Register eligible railroad trestle bridge. And work on the bridge itself has not taken place, but Rick did get a couple of really amazing photos from this site, so I'll be showing those. The sign on the left is an old sign for the Warehouse nightclub, and he was expressing interest in trying to preserve that if we could, and I told him I wasn't sure if we could manage that, but he was fond of that sign, so.
It's talking about not the warehouse, but it's talking about after the warehouse.
Right, it's a business that came far after Sam Hill Warehouse. Yeah, so one of the things he did while he was on site is he put a drone up in the air, and so we've got this really amazing aerial photo of Hilton Garden Inn in progress. And you're probably familiar with the view from the street that's on the lower left there, but this is a nice shot just to show that building going up on site. Now we're over in Pinecrest Historic District, and this is over on Apache Drive. We approved actually there's 3 projects at this location, so 2 of them are documented here. The front wall fence project is what you're viewing here. As I anticipated, when they started drilling into the wall, it crumbled, the historic wall at the front of this property, so they've reconstructed the wall. I think it's unfortunate that they chose pink red mortar as the mortar element for this. It does look like they may have used native stone, but this is the completed wall in the front of 929 Apache. And then the last item we approved at this location was reconstruction of a rear garage, and with a small addition, which would be to the right side as you're looking head on at that garage. And you can see here, they're required to keep the existing footprint. They can't completely tear that building down because it is grandfathered in its current location. So they have it supported, and they're retro pouring a foundation into that building. And then after they do that, they'll add the addition and then do the finishing work for this. This is the Smoke Eye Museum project, the demolition of the middle building, and then we've approved construction of a new museum building in this location, and this work has not started yet. This was phase 2 of the Armory window project. You may recall many of these windows had the steel security bars that had been cut in order to install these office air conditioning units. Those units have been removed with the upgrade of a new HVAC system for this building, and so these windows have been restored, including the steel security grate, a reproduction of that same grate style. This was
Quick on the Armory. That is owned by
the city.
the city.
Yes, we do. This is, we reviewed 2 items over here. One was the signage on the north side of the depot building for the Mountain Desert Realty. That's the sign above the windows there. So that sign did get installed. The other item we approved here, and this construction has not begun, was for a renovation of this courtyard space that sits in between Streets of New York and Subway. You know, those are the 2 adjoining businesses. So that would include removal of those planters you see below the building. They propose to install a stage with a canopy, and then reconfiguring of the courtyard with some modified seating and planters. But they want to be able to turn this into a venue where they can have entertainment and have performances. And that work has not started. And then these are just a couple of final aerials from that were shot over Sam Hill Warehouse and the bridge associated with Rick putting his drone up in the air at this location. So I just wanted to go ahead and show those. Work at Sam Hill Warehouse is not started yet, even though we've approved that. That'll be in the next follow-up presentation. And with that, we're done. And I wish Rick was here to receive your praise because he did an excellent job.
Yes. Chairman, I would like to compliment Richard for all of his great work to bring this to our attention. Sorry that he couldn't be here to present it personally. It's a lot of great work.
Yeah.
Secondly, is I would like to commend my colleagues here for that's a pretty productive activity over the last few years. You've made some great decisions, and I'm honored to be part of this group. And
Yeah.
so that's all I have to say about that.
If I could, Kat, does this presentation happen every year?
We do it about, depending on how many items we have. And last year was particularly light, so I think we went almost 2 years this time. But if we have a lot of items, then we try to do it every January. But if we don't have enough items that have been completed, then we'll wait and do a follow-up once we have enough.
As the new commissioner, I really appreciated seeing what was done, the before, the after, and type of things. So it got me caught up a little bit.
Yeah,
So-
and I think it is beneficial for new members of the commission to just get an idea of the range of what gets reviewed and what gets approved.
Okay. So thank you.
Sure.
Well done. Kudos. We'll thank Rick when we see him.
Okay, great.
Any other announcements or?
Well, yeah, I have one thing. Just Mary Ann brought up a good tickler for me here, and our guests have left, Mr. Johnson. It's good to have neighbors come by and support each other, or not support each other, to at least learn what the neighbors feel about these kinds of things, and that tickled. And then there was a couple up here that there were some neighbors in the Apache area, and there was some dissension in the community regarding some of this. I'm not throwing work back at you, but I know that in the past we were going to work on some guidelines about what kind of public involvement. I'll wait for Mary Ann here. It's a
Yeah.
drama point here.
The intrigue.
The intrigue. Yeah, it gives you time to answer the question. This is like Jeopardy.
I apologize. I thought I turned that off.
That's all right, Mary Ann.
Told me to.
I
So-
think it
so
was
we-
fortuitous, Mary Ann, because it added some tension and some dialogue. You remember this? For Mary Ann and other new members, we had some dialogue with the committee and as well as the staff here about what are the things that would trigger certain levels of public involvement. How do we engage in that? How do we sense that before the meeting comes? Because sometimes it's been half full.
So, yeah, I mean, to your point, there were actually 2 items I can think of in that slideshow. The 929 Apache work brought neighbors out who were concerned. That happens in the Pinecrest neighborhood because that neighborhood is so tight. And so everybody knows what everybody else is doing. I mean, it's because it's so tight physically, and then there's a network of, people talking about what other people are doing.
Yes.
Which is good and bad sometimes, but that often work in Pinecrest often brings neighbors out. The other item where we intentionally notified neighbors was on the Alarcon Street addition, where they were taking a less than 800 square foot Victorian cottage and they wanted to put a 3,000 square foot addition.
I remember that.
And that was potentially controversial because it was such a big ask. And so in those 3 meetings it took to get something through, the neighborhood was noticed in order to just put everything out regarding that item. And we did have discussion about, should we notice everything, that we have come before us? A lot of the things are minor changes and don't seem worth it. Determining that threshold is pretty
Difficult.
It's a gray area. So up till now, it's been, this could be controversial. We better notify all the adjacent neighbors, and then we send a letter. So it's been ad hoc for each item. But you're right, we did discuss maybe setting a specific policy on when to notify.
And I'm not calling you on that. I just wanted an update. And I think it's worked since those controversial times. And again, neighbors are talking to neighbors, and Mr. Ralph, who's helping Mr. Johnson. That's a good dialogue and good support. Thank you.
Well, yeah.
Other comments? If not, I'll adjourn this January 10th, 2020 meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission.